Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Trey here for My Custom Life, and this is going to be part 2 of the last video. I had shaped out this spear point style neck knife, and now since it's shaped out, I'm going to be using the files and going through and all these choils and everything and making sure everything's flat and all even from front to back, making sure everything's good to go. So when I go ahead and go to scribe the line for the bevels, everything will match up just fine. So what I'm going to use, since I moved all my stuff around when I was using my bench grinder, is just standard files. For this one, I'm probably going to be using just, well, I say just my half round and my flat file, but I may go ahead and use my round file. So these are what I use. They're standard. They're not very expensive. They're hyper tough. They work. They're not the best. I mean, I'm definitely going to invest in some much better, like some Nicholson files, something like that. Something that's worth a little bit more, that's going to last a little bit longer. These do a pretty good job, but, you can always do better. Now, I use my vise. This is one tool that I invested in. It's really not that expensive. I think I got them for $12 to $15, I think, maybe. I need to look at the camera. I'm looking at the screen. But it's soft jaws for your bench vise, if you have a bench vise. These are extremely awesome because I was doing regular work on the bench vise, and I always had trouble with marring up the steel, marring up the knife itself, and having to do extra file work and then taking off more material just to get those divots and scratches out. So this, it's super cheap. There you can get them in many different variations. There's this one. It's got the, if you can see that, yeah, it's got the checkered pattern. There's one that have just big old giant notches so it fits in. But I like these because it seems to grip a lot easier. But they're just magnetic. They just fit right over. They're made for 6-inch vise jaws, but I only got a 4-inch. But even still, they do a very good job. And I love it because, for one, keeps the steel from getting marred up, and two, because the rubber kind of sinks in and really gets a nice grip on it, so you don't have to worry about your work moving around. And I'm going to start on the handle for now. Get this these few choils nice and rounded and shaped. And like I said in my last video, one thing to always remember, and most people know this, some people don't, and if you don't, then this is some new knowledge. Files only cut in one direction. I said in my last video, it was something that I knew, but I never really put to work, because I thought at the time, it was when I first started, thought at the time, going back and forth, to do twice the movement, you get twice the work done. Well, it doesn't work that way. If you go in one direction, you're going to cut in one direction, and two, it's going to make your files last a lot longer. It's going to make them cut better. And then, I just use a little bitty brush and keep my files clean, so it won't be getting deeper gouges in the steel. It won't be getting bigger scratches than just the file alone. So I'm going to go in here, clean these choils up, make them nice and rounded, and then here in a little bit, when I go ahead and start on the blade, on the actual blade of the knife, I'll show you guys. It's a real simple, easy process. It's not hard to do. I'll show you a simple way how to scribe the blade of your knife, so that way you get a nice center line, so when you start filing or grinding, whichever one you do to put your bevels in, you have a nice line to go to. That way you can grind each side perfectly even. And there's different ways to do it depending on your, I guess, arsenal of tools will depend on how you do it. You can either use, like I use, drill bits. And since this is a 1/4 inch steel, I use a 1/4 inch drill bit, and the drill, the actual point is dead center in the drill. So when I go ahead to mark the center line, I'll usually put like Sharpie or some blue Daikin or some layout die, whatever. It'll mark the center, and usually it'll leave 2 lines that are very close together, and that's great. What that allows you to do is grinds those lines, leaves you a little bit of material for when you go to heat treat. That way you don't worry about damaging the edge, heating it too much and then setting yourself back. Oh. Anyway, this is a very simple process. As you can see, it's already getting started. It's probably not going to show up on camera very well. You can kind of see which part's shiny and which part's not. But I'm going to go ahead and get to work on these, and then I will show you what it looks like when it's finished. And it's not going to look a ton different, but I am going to modify this. I'm probably going to put this choil a little bit further up. The way it gives you a little bit more of a higher thumb ramp, because that thumb ramp's way back there. I'm probably going to put it up here. That might look a little cooler and feel a little more comfortable in hand. So I'm going to get to work on those, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. Alright guys, I got this almost finished up. I've got the spine here, these choils, this little back part here. I don't know what you technically call that. I guess a drop of the spine. I don't know. But anyway, I got those all nice and shaped. And they're nice and smooth. I'm going to hit them with some sandpaper here in a little bit. And this little corner, it's all rounded off. And kind of move that choil up a little bit. It looks quite a bit different now, but it gives you a nice thumb ramp up there to hold on to. It's a little bit more comfortable considering it's such a small knife. But anyway, about to go ahead and start working on the bevels. I'm going to get them, I guess not the bevels, on the edge of the actual knife, front and back edge, since this is a spear point. And I'm going to try and get them all nice and flat, and then sand the edges, make everything flat, and then we'll go ahead and go mark our bevels, mark our center line. I'm going to go ahead and work on that real quick, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. One tip real quick, and some of you, or all of you, may already know this, or may have heard about it before, but there's one technique that I use that I've learned over the last couple years is draw filing. Now, most people know what a draw knife is. It's a knife used for wood. It has an edge right in the center, and you draw it or push, and it'll shave the wood. Well, this is kind of the same thing with filing. You hold the file just like you would a draw knife, and what happens is you get the second cut, and you can go back and forth, and it kind of helps you get more control. And because you can kind of help. You can kind of tell if it's level or not. Because, if you're pushing back, if you're pushing forward, you can be level a lot, and then every now and then you may get to the edge and it may tilt a little bit, and then you got a little bit of an edge, so then you got to file and make that smooth. But with draw filing, not only can you have more control to be able to keep it flat, but it also gets all the file marks going in the same direction. It gets them all to a nice straight pattern, and so when you go ahead and sand it to smooth those out, it makes it that much easier. And also, if you aren't able to get it as smooth as possible, when you go to mark your center line, the file marks going across or cross hatching won't be catching the tip of the drill bit, making the drill bit jump around or catch real hard, or maybe skip a little bit so it doesn't mark properly. If you get the file marks going in one direction, it kind of smooths out and it's able to guide itself, and so it really helps. But anyway, you just take it like a draw knife and just go from front to back. And it will quickly work out really well for you. And I like using this. I also use it when I file the bevels, because the way I file the bevels, as of right now, because I don't have a belt grinder, which I'm going to be getting, but as of right now I don't, so I use a filing jig, which I'll show in a future video where I'm sharpening either this knife or sharpening one of my other knives I'm going to be making. And I'll do the actual strokes of a file to get the bevel started, and once I get it to say this stage where the bevels are established, I got nice good plunge lines, then I'll take the file, because it's a flat file and it's not going to put a hollow grind in it or a convex grind in it where it's kind of sloped. I'll do a draw file technique, and so it'll get all those scratches that are going up and down, or side to side, I guess technically, on the bevel going this way. And so for me, it makes it a whole lot easier to sand it, because all those file marks are going the same direction. Like this side, was able to sand really easily with no deep scratches in there. The other side, I got a little bit more work to do, but it definitely makes it easier for me personally. Now, you may find it to be a little bit difficult, or you may find it to be just as effective. But if all possible, a belt grinder definitely takes all the work of having to worry if it's flat or not almost completely out of the question. You'll have a flat plate, and you want to worry about file it to making sure it's 100% flat. Alright, so that bevel's done. Or bevel, I keep saying bevel, that's not right. That edge is done. It looks really good, looks really straight. It's got a nice, I guess not straight, but it's got a really nice curve to it, how it should on the spear point. So I'm going to go ahead and get to work on the second one to use the same technique. I'll go ahead and sand the edges, make sure they're nice and flat, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished, and then we'll go ahead and mark the center line for the bevels. Alright guys, got it all profiled, got everything nice and smoothed out, all the edges smooth. I used just some standard scratch or scrap sandpaper. Got all the burrs cleaned off, got the edges looking good. Now, this is how I scribe the center line. You don't have to do this if you're using a filing jig, or if you've done plenty of bevels before and you know exactly where you need to go. If you get a flat platen on a belt grinder, it makes it a lot easier, but since I'm using files, this is how I prefer to do it, as of right now. Anyway, just take a marker, or you can use layout dye, blue Dicon, I guess spray paint. That's all you had, that would work just fine as well. Anyway, just mark the edge. And if you're going to do it this way, you need to get a drill bit. That's what you use if you're doing it this way. Get a drill bit that has the same thickness of the metal you're using. So for instance, this is 1/4 inch 5160 high carbon steel. So I got a 1/4 inch drill bit, and you're going to lay it on a flat surface. And for me, this board is flat. I've cut it just to use as a backing for cutting out all my templates, and it's flat. It's not warped or anything like that. So you sand it, make sure it's all nice and smooth, and then you take the drill bit, lay it down, and then you just drag it along the blade, and you flip it over and do it again. Now what you'll end up with, I don't know if you can see it, kinda, what you end up with, oh there we go, see a little bit, 2 lines that are really close together. Now that's alright, that's fine. That's not you messing it up, that's not, the drill bit's warped or anything like that. That's perfect. What you want is for that to happen, because now that you have those 2 lines, like I said in my part 1 to this video, if you have 2 lines and you go to those 2 lines, you'll have enough material for 1, your secondary bevel, and 2, you'll have enough meat right there for when you go to do your heat treat that you won't damage the edge and get it over hardened to where it won't temper properly, and therefore it'll be really brittle. So because it's spear point, I'm going to sharpen the back side too, so I'm going to do this again. Put it right in the center, or just lay it down, it'll center itself. Flip it over, do it again, And just like the last one, if you can see, end up with 2 lines right in the center that are very close together. And that is a simple yet effective, move my camera up since now I'm done with that part. There we go. That's a very simple and very effective way of marking your center lines if you choose to do so. Now with the filing jig that I'm going to be using, I probably don't need to mark a center line because the filing jig has, I have an eyelet bolt into the wood, so it's set at a specific degree of hang on, it's set at a specific angle. So it's going to file right where I want to. It's going to file just fine. It's not like I'm freehanding it. But either way, this lets me know exactly where to go. And it lets me know exactly what's center. So I don't look at it like, yeah, that looks pretty good. And then you look at it again like, yeah, it's way off. It looked right at the time, but, you know, because I've done that. And that is a very simple, like I said, simple and effective way to mark your center lines. So that concludes this part of the video. I'm going to be coming out with more videos on the actual sharpening, and first I'm going to talk about how to make a filing jig, and there's plenty of videos out there, but this is how I made mine. It's very simple to a lot of them. Some of them are simpler. This one's, it's not very hard, but some of them are even simpler than this one. And how I learned is exactly what we're doing right now. I went on YouTube and just typed in how to make a filing jig, and it came up plenty of videos. So one thing to conclude this video that I want to talk about, and I want to talk about consistently while we're out here working on knives, building knives, is please take advice from other knife makers, other people who are in machine shops or in shops in general where there's dust and chemicals. Please wear your safety gear. When you're filing knives, when you're cutting steel, anything, always make sure you have a good respirator. It doesn't have to be a 3M paint respirator. I got this because I used to work at a paint shop. But wear a good respirator that's going to keep you from breathing in all the dust, all the chemicals. If you're messing with paint, or you know, all the metal dust, all the wood dust, if you're messing with scales, anytime you're grinding or sanding, please take caution as much as possible and wear your personal protective equipment, because it doesn't take but 1 second for you to cut something and a metal shard go in your eye, and then you got to either go to the doctor and get it drilled out, or it can cause some serious problems and you may lose vision. It doesn't take but a second. Now, I've never had that happen to me. I've usually tried to be as safe as possible. My dad has had his eyes drilled on multiple times. Luckily, he hasn't lost his vision, but he's had it happen, and my brother's had it, and my grandfather's all done it. Because, you know, it doesn't take nothing for one thing to go wrong in just a split of a second. So please always wear your personal protective equipment, especially when you're grinding, painting, all that stuff, because when you breathe in those chemicals and you breathe in that dust and it collects in your lungs, that kind of stuff doesn't come out. It just settles in there. And the more you breathe in, the thicker it gets, and that's how a lot of people develop COPD and other upper respiratory problems. So please take caution. Please take all necessary need to be as safe as possible. You know, wear your respirator, wear your goggles, wear gloves if you need to, like when you're cutting equipment. So that way, if your finger does get too close to the blade, it's got a little bit of leather to go to before it gets to your finger, so you can hopefully react within time. And you know, always take all necessary steps to make sure that you can be as safe as possible, as well as getting the most work done as efficiently as you can. And that's my kind of, PSA announcement for the day. But anyway, that's one thing I'm going to talk about every day when we're in here in the shop building knives, is constantly harping on staying safe, always making sure you're wearing, you know, the proper equipment for what job you're doing. But anyway, that concludes today's video. I will be doing more on this particular knife, on the sharpening. We still are building this knife. This is the Santoku paring knife. We just got the file work done on it. We got that video out last Thursday, and I have yet to start this knife. And I will be making videos over this knife. Kind of got a little bit high on there on the cut on the handle. But anyway, this is my little, I was going to make it as a neck knife, but because it's so thick, It's definitely not going to be that way, but this is my little bitty cleaver, my little mini cleaver. And we're going to be working on this. I'm going to be coming out with some videos on this. This one's going to take a while because it's pretty hefty. And I'm going to come out with more videos on this about wet sanding, about certain things. And I did some file work on there. I wish I had made some videos on this one, but as I was making the knife, I was having camera troubles and wasn't able to. But anyway, now I'm just raving on and just wasting your time. So we'll see y'all soon. I hope everyone has a great day. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found some value in this video. If you did, please leave a like and a comment below. Tell me what more you'd like to see. Tell me some ways that I can do better. You know, if you have some advice for me that I can put to use to make better knives, to be more efficient at the job that I do. And I would definitely appreciate it. And if you like this channel, please subscribe, and we will see y'all soon. Love y'all. Bye.